Good to go? Okay. We start right now. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first event in 2021 in partnership with the DIT, Department for International Trade of the United Kingdom, and the EIC Energy Industry Council. A few words of housekeeping for the attendees. Could you please keep your microphones in mute and switch off your cameras? Just the panelists will have the cameras on. And the questions can be asked on the conversation box. We have time for Q&As at the end of Porto do Açu presentations. The theme of our webinar today is Industrialization Opportunities at Porto do Açu, Brazil, and we'll be joined by the chairwoman of the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce, Vera Dantas, by Martin Whalley, Trade Investment Director for Brazil and Foreign Direct Investment in Latin America and Caribbean, José Firmo, CEO of Porto do Açu, and Tessa, Director of International Business Innovation for Porto do Açu. I'll read the bios after Vera Inês pronounce her welcome message. Vera, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ieda. Good morning, everyone in Brazil. Good afternoon to those in the UK and in Europe. It gives me great pleasure to be here today at the seminar on industrialization opportunities of Port of Açu, the industrial port complex located at São João da Barra in the state of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. I am particularly happy as the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce is promoting the seminar, as Ieda just mentioned, in conjunction with the Department for International Trade of the United Kingdom, the DIT, and the Energy Industries Council, the EIC, and of course with Port of Açu as well. And in this respect, I would like to mention that we are particularly grateful to Daniela Carneiro and Ana Terra of the DIT, to Stuart Broadley and Clarice Rocha of the EIC, and also to Marty Draysens, Thiago Pacheco, and Vanessa Teixeira of Porto Açu. And of course, our heartfelt thanks to our speakers today and to our councillor and moderator today, Ieda Gomes, for organizing the seminar and bringing the parties together to speak to us today. So all that we will hear today about Porto of Açu is big. For Port of Açu is one of the largest infrastructure complex in Brazil, is responsible for 25% of Brazilian oil exports, and has one of the largest iron ore terminals in the country. It is also one of the largest ports in Brazil in terms of cargo volume. So I really look forward to hearing our speakers, and they will, of course, give you all the available information today on Port of Açu. On my part, I would like to say that in doing this seminar, the Brazilian Chamber is fulfilling its roles of bringing to its member and the public at large the best available information on business opportunities in Brazil. This is one of our main roles, and if you do business with Brazil, if you want to keep updated in relation to prospects and opportunities in relation to the country, I would encourage you to join the Brazilian Chamber and to follow us on LinkedIn, on social media, and on our website, www.brazilianchamber.org.uk. There, you will be able to find all the information that you need to join us. Companies and individuals based in Britain, in Brazil, and elsewhere are most welcome. And we would be delighted to have you with us in this mission to promote Brazil, as well as to promote your business, because this is what we do. Thank you very much, everyone. Ieda, over to you.
Thank you, Vera. That's very, very great to have this opportunity today. I just wonder whether Martin has already joined us, and so he could give us some thoughts about what the GIT is doing. Martin, are you there?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Hi there.
I'm gonna introduce you because we have these teams that we don't see all the faces, but let me introduce you a little bit. Martin Whalley is the Trade Investment Director for the UK government. He's been working for the UK government over 11 years and started his current job in July 2019. He was previously Deputy Consul General in Chicago, and this is the second time he has worked in Brazil for the UK government. He speaks very good Portuguese. Prior to this job, Martin worked for the private sector in UK and Italy, and he has vast experience in trade and investment and support of companies willing to establish abroad. Martin will be leaving before the Q&As, so if you have any specific questions for him, please email us at the Brazilian Chamber and we'll direct the questions to Martin. Thanks, Martin. The floor is yours, and I'll introduce the other speakers later.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, and great to be here. Thank you to the Chamber in London for the opportunity to speak to this audience about operating in Brazil as a British company. I won't go into the detail of the opportunities specifically at Porto do Açu, because our colleagues and our friends from the Porto do Açu will talk about that in some more detail. So I wanted to talk more generally about the challenges and opportunities here in Brazil, and how particularly the team here at the consulate and the embassy can help. So I think, as people probably are aware, trade and investment is really at the core of what the embassy and the consulate teams do in Brazil. We're really focused on helping strengthen the economic links between UK and Brazil from what is, a decent base, but not as strong as we would like. I think lots of people are maybe not everybody, at the turn of the last century, so as the 19th century turned into the 20th century, the UK was probably Brazil's biggest trading partner, or it certainly was one of the top trading partners, and the UK was really involved in the development of, for example, Sao Paulo's infrastructure, particularly its rail infrastructure, and British companies had a really strong presence in Brazil. Unfortunately, we can no longer say that. The UK is no longer one of Brazil's top trading partners, and vice versa. Brazil isn't one of the major markets for UK companies. I think Brazil currently is around mid-30s in terms of the ranking of export markets for UK companies, which doesn't do justice to the size of the Brazilian economy or the UK economy. We should be more important trading partners to each other. Another comparator, I think, which is interesting, is overall market share, and the market share for UK companies and the total percentage of UK imports to Brazil as a percentage of Brazil's total imports is really low, around about 1%. Whereas our European partners, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, even Portugal, have higher market shares. So the UK is, let's say, punching below its weight in terms of its exports to Brazil, and we would want to help the UK companies catch up and to close that gap, and to really strengthen that link between the UK economy and the Brazilian economy. We see lots of complementarities and lots of opportunities for our two economies to be much more sort of close together. And I think that support to UK exporters is fairly well understood among the UK business community. I think most UK companies understand that if they want help to export to a particular country, they can come to the Department of International Trade or to the consulate and embassy teams around the world, the British consulate and British embassy teams, and get support with exporting to whichever country they're looking to go to. I think what is less well understood is that we also are able to support British companies who are looking to make the next step, which is investing overseas and establishing a presence in a new country, and in this case in Brazil. So our team in Sao Paulo, but also in Rio and in other cities in Brazil, Brasilia, Belo Horizonte and Recife, is set up to help British companies which have a presence here in Brazil and have invested here and established themselves here. That support takes on all sorts of different forms. We can help companies before they invest understand what the opportunities are and also understand what the challenges are. I won't say it's easy. It's not an easy thing, but the opportunities are huge. The size of the Brazilian market is huge. Many UK companies use Brazil as a base for the wider region as well, Mercosur, albeit Latin America. But the UK companies have a presence here, which isn't just for the market of Brazil, great and huge as it is, but for the wider market here as well. So we can help British companies understand what challenges they're likely to face, ensure they are connected to the right people in local governments, be it state governments or city governments, ourselves in discussions with those authorities to help smooth the way for UK investment into Brazil. And we can connect British companies to specialists and to partners, for example, Port of Açu, who can help gain opportunities over here. So that's sort of in advance of setting up in Brazil. But once British companies have set up in Brazil, we're really focused as well on making sure and doing all we can to help those companies be successful here. We don't want British companies to make the, or someone's unmuted, if you could just mute yourself. We don't want British companies to make the effort and the expense of coming to Brazil only to not find that it helps them be profitable, helps them be successful. And the British government operation here in Brazil is really set up to help. One of the main ways we help is one-to-one. We deal with individual companies, individual investors over here, and help them with their individual issues, be it a market access issue, be it a regulatory issue, be it the need for new introductions and new contacts, but we're able to help with that. And the other area we help is in helping the British business voice be heard within the decision-making and government community in Brazil. So we help British companies advocate for their interests, British investors advocate for their interests here. And what that's looked like over recent years, is a programme over every year of around 12 to 15 events and opportunities to put concerns directly to decision makers and influencers in Brazil. Let me give you a couple of examples, which will help it make sense. So right now in Brazil, one of the major issues which the federal government is talking about and which British companies and Brazilian companies care a lot about is tax reform, making Brazil's tax system much simpler and hopefully fairer. And this is an issue which is going through or being discussed within the Brazilian Congress at the moment. The Congress right now is going through a leadership sort of election. There'll be new leaders elected to different positions in Congress. But last year, right now, the current Speaker of the lower house of the Brazilian Congress is somebody called Rodrigo Maia. Last year, we arranged an opportunity for British companies to have lunch with Rodrigo Maia so they could put their concerns about the different possibilities of how the tax system in Brazil would be reformed directly to the Speaker of the Brazilian Congress, who was really influential in that process. And this is a top priority for British investors now in Brazil. And as this tax reform debate continues, we'll make sure we'll do all that we can to ensure that British companies have the opportunity to feed into that debate and make sure that their concerns are heard. Another major factor facing British companies in Brazil right now is issues around sustainability and supply chains. One of the leaders of that conversation within the Brazilian federal government is the Vice President, Hamilton Mourão. And what we're hoping to set up within the next month or two is an opportunity for UK investors here in Brazil to speak directly to the Vice President and to discuss what their worries are, what their concerns are, what they're doing in terms of helping Brazil become an even more sustainable economy, and also to hear back from the Vice President, from the very sort of centre of the Brazilian government, about what's going on within the Brazilian government's plans to make Brazil a more sustainable economy as we look forward to the climate change negotiations in COP26 at the end of this year, which will happen in Scotland. So there's lots of opportunities and lots of areas where British companies need to access the Brazilian government, and we are set up here to help that process and to ensure that British companies are heard and that their policy issues are heard within the Brazilian government. This year, 2021, we're in the process actually of handing that advocacy programme over from being led by the British Embassy and the British consulates to being led by the British Chamber of Commerce here in Brazil. The British Chamber of Commerce is not the same organisation which organised this webinar. That's the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce in the UK, but both chambers are very good friends, are in regular contact with each other and do a lot together. But the British Chamber of Commerce is a community of British companies and some Brazilian companies too, based in Brazil. And we're in the process of handing over our advocacy efforts to that chamber, and the chamber will, with the support of the British Embassy, ensure that British companies are supported to have their voices heard within the Brazilian government system here in Brazil. So my point of saying all of this is that if you are a British company and you're thinking about opportunities in Brazil, then please do count on the trade and investment team within the British Embassy and within the British consulates here in Brazil to help directly, to help with contacts, and to help with specialists during the process. And then after the process, once you are established and you're an investor in Brazil, please do count on us as well to make sure to help you be as successful as you can within Brazil. So that's our support which is offered to UK investors here. Two other things I'll what we could cover, but just to cover in terms of how else are we helping making the relationship between Brazil and the British economy stronger. One thing that I think is very relevant, and I shouldn't miss mentioning this, as we've just, in the first month post the Brexit transition period, is a potential free trade agreement between the UK and Brazil, or UK and Mercosur. Now, this is something which was discussed between the UK Trade Minister, Liz Truss, and the Brazilian Trade Minister late last year, and both governments expressed their enthusiasm for a trade deal, which would help strengthen hugely, I think, the relationship between Brazil and the UK. So there's a lot of enthusiasm for a trade deal on both sides. Now, we're not in a position where we can open negotiations today or tomorrow, or even over the next few months, because the British government is currently prioritising trade deals with the US, Australia, and possibly TPP. So we're not yet in the position where we can start negotiations with Mercosur, but we would hope to be over the next period, and we're currently preparing for the beginning of negotiations, having conversations between the Brazilian government and the British government, between British companies and Brazilian companies, and making sure we're understanding the issues which will come up in a future trade deal. So that's one thing where we're hoping to make the relationship stronger and hoping to make doing business much easier. And the second area I'll quickly mention is clean growth and sustainable growth. Brazil has a great record on sustainable growth. The energy matrix in Brazil is really clean. 45% of energy is delivered from renewable sources. I know there's a lot which the Porto of Açu is doing around energy. One area particularly I will mention is offshore wind. Brazil doesn't yet have an offshore wind base. The regulations to establish offshore wind aren't yet in place in Brazil. And this is something which the UK government is working very closely with Brazil on. As probably some people on this call know, the UK has the highest installed capacity of offshore wind anywhere in the world, and has a really sort of established and sort of set of regulations which work well to encourage offshore wind. And we're working closely with different partners and friends in the Brazilian government to share that best practice and to talk about how offshore wind was rolled out and worked in the UK. I know there's something which interests also our friends at Porto do Açu. So we're really looking to do much more with Brazil in advance of COP26 and of course after COP26 on developing clean growth, clean sustainable growth on both sides of this relationship in the UK and in Brazil. There's a lot going on which is really positive already, particularly in offshore wind, and there's a lot more we can do as well. Now, as mentioned, I can't stay unfortunately to the end of the webinar, but please do get in touch, LinkedIn or email or via the chamber if you have any specific questions. I know I've just scooted over lots of issues there. Great, I will wrap up there. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Martin. And I was witness of how active these guys from the GIT. When I was president of a British company in Brazil, we had excellent access to decision makers in Brasilia, and very active, proactive work they developing, putting together investors from the UK and companies in Brazil. Thank you very much. And thanks for your support as well, as usual. So with that said, now we're going to go to our friend from Porto do Açu. I'm going to introduce here first José Firmo. José Firmo was appointed CEO of Porto do Açu in November 2019. He has more than 30 years of experience in the oil and gas service industry. And Firmo has built a solid international career working in several companies of the sector. Previously, he was president of Seadrill Brazil and later senior vice president for Western Hemisphere at Seadrill in Houston, and a previous career of 22 years for Schlumberger in several senior leadership positions. Tessa Major, she's Director of International Business Innovation for Porto do Açu, with a wealth of experience in all aspects of project development. Tessa, she's Belgian, citizen from Belgium, and she is been living in Brazil for a few years. She's also fluent in Portuguese. And she also was a technical manager of environment and manager of port projects for Port of Antwerp in Belgium. So she has a wealth of experience in ports and large investment in infrastructure and developing these port facilities. And she has been focused on assessing and evaluating port projects worldwide. So thanks, Firmo and Tessa. We have now time for you to make a presentation. You're going to have some slides, and thanks very much. And ladies and gentlemen, please start to send your Q&As through the chat, the conversation box, so I can compile the question for the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Ieda. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me start by first thanking everyone that organized the webinar and that put us in this great opportunity. Vera has done a great job of doing a little bit of propaganda of the port. Thank you very much, Vera. You got some of the good numbers for the port. And I think Martin, he was kind. I mean, not being Brazilian, he was kind of easy to say that it's difficult, but it's okay to do business in Brazil. As a Brazilian, I can say it's pretty difficult, right? We all know that Brazil is quite of a complicated place. And some will say that very good old say that it's not for beginners, it's not for amateurs, it's difficult. What we try to be, and I think I'm going to be here presenting to you, is a platform that makes that a lot easier. The Port of Açu is an ambitious project. It's a very large opportunity for growth. It's the biggest opportunity for growth on the industry in Brazil. We know that is the biggest and the only private port in Brazil. Privatization of ports is now being discussed. We are the reality of that, and not just a reality in terms of future, but in terms of what we're doing today. We're going to cover some slides here, try to show you what has happened in Porto do Açu lately, and then create, and I'm going to try to go really quick and then hand it over to Tessa, to create the curiosity so that we can continue the conversation. Açu is a place where you can dream big. It's a big dream, and making it quite of a complex and difficult solution in terms of utilizing the entire area. But it is exactly what we are trying to pursue here. If you're thinking about investing in Brazil, if you're thinking about improving or increasing your investment in Brazil, we strongly believe you should consider Açu, and that is kind of what we're going to do here today. Thiago, I need you to help me. Go ahead. Yes. So where we are, I think most of you know, right in front of the largest oil and gas province in the globe today, the one that has found the highest reserves globally in the last decade. So you can't talk about Porto do Açu without saying we have a natural tendency, an absolute alignment in terms of being the best service provider for the oil and gas industry in Brazil. But that's not just that. We also have a very large industrial development. Açu is an industry port. The tradition in which we are going to develop is currently in what we call the oil and gas hub, where you see here the oil hub and the gas hub and the iron ore hub, which are the more consolidated hubs. And then we still have a very large opportunity to continue to develop as a port in logistics, because you see that we are right between Vitória and Rio. These are two ports that today sit inside of great, large metropolis, large cities, and they have obviously very, very restricted capabilities in terms of increasing and continuing to grow. Açu is the natural opportunity so that when these infrastructures can no longer grow, we can pick up all the growth that the Brazil will have, right? We dream about a country that goes back to grow 3, 4, 5% a year. And Açu is definitely the best platform for that growth in the southeast part of the country, no doubt. We do have an industrial hub is where we're going to talk. I'm going to give you very high level examples of the other hubs, and we'll talk a lot about the industrial hub. The green hub is an opportunity for us, and Açu was born. If you click, I think you're go to the next slide, you see this is the structure of Açu, and Açu was born with this big reserve, this 40,000 square kilometers, 40 square kilometers of area dedicated originally from the day it was born to sustainable capabilities of Açu. So it's really a port that was designed and born for the future with the mindset that we can do a lot in the industry, but we also have already, as a platform for development, a great opportunity for sustainability. So this is how it was born. In 2014, you had the initial operations here, what we call the first wave, where you see the iron ore export and the iron ore pipeline that comes from Minas. That is kind of what originated everything. And then we are pretty much developing on Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. So the next wave, let's go to the next one, is obviously the creation of the multi-cargo terminal, which is kind of the entry door for everything that is happening in Açu. The most difficult thing about investing in Brazil is certainly having the infrastructure of the country, which is quite not developed, let's face it, so that when you develop an industry, you have to face ports and railroads and roads that you're going to have to bring everything in to develop. Açu has this multi-cargo terminal that has enabled already companies and industry that decided to invest in Açu to kind of bypass all that trouble and be able to develop at the speed and with the cost and the effectiveness of any development around the globe. That is quite of a critical, important content of that. The oil terminal is the only private oil terminal in Brazil, which then translates into, as we expand the oil and gas industry, as we see the oil and gas industry starting to expand and new players arriving, they needed a place where they can do the double bunking, be able to do it in safe, protected waters so they can export their oil. And this is how it's used today by pretty much every single company that operates in oil and gas in Brazil. The next wave where we are more or less today is that we're proudly finishing GNA1, which is the first gas power plant, and the LNG terminal, which was inaugurated, let's call it this way, with a Christmas bonus of operating the LNG for the first time, the LNG terminal, at the end of last month. And then we will see the first firing of the first power plant in the upcoming weeks, which is kind of the latest development in terms of what's going on in Brazil. And then we continue to develop the Terminal 2 here, mostly servicing oil and gas. We see a cluster of subsea activity for oil and gas happening in Brazil. Subsea is certainly one of the biggest advantages of Açu, because you have direct connection with the Campos Basin, with the Santos Basin, and also with everything that is happening in oil and gas in Brazil. And we clearly see a movement to create the best, the most efficient subsea hub for industries, for oil and gas happening in Açu right now. And then as we grow, we have some big numbers for you. We have about 7,000 people working in Açu today, 17 kilometers of quayside. We have 90 square kilometers to development. It's kind of 2 times Manhattan right there that we need to develop, and that is available to develop. One interesting number is we are the 3rd port in Brazil in cargo volume today. I think we were surprised when we saw this data because we passed one of the very important ports, but we are now a reality in terms of cargo volumes going through Açu, and that is a very important thing. First port in Brazil that put the vessel traffic system all electronic, so we now control everything that is happening inside Açu and outside during in our proximity there through the highest technological way of doing it, a bit like same as controlling the airplanes in an airport. So this is quite important, and other ports are following us in that development in Açu today. So these are numbers that kind of help us. The growth came originally from the iron ore export, and you can see here a pretty steady growth. In 2018, there was an interruption of the iron ore pipeline, and that is why you see the reduction in there. But 2020 was a very successful year for us. With all the COVID and with everything that happened, we were able to maintain the port open 100% of the time, and we were able to, both in oil and in iron ore, break the record of exportation in Port of Açu. So this is obviously a very hard task that it was done with all the companies, with the coordination of Port of Açu, but also obviously in coordination with the society around us and with the coordination of all the authorities, so that we could maintain a high level of standard in terms of health during the difficult months of 2020. Luckily, and we're really proud that we've implemented together with partners. If you look at Port of Antwerp, our partner, they were ahead of us in terms of what's happening in 2020. We were able to use their lessons learned, use their best practices. We actually initiated a task force to look around the globe and be able to do in Brazil what was being done and working across the globe, and we were able to maintain the port open. And luckily, we didn't have any fatality. And today, we don't have anybody even in the hospital because we were able to control it in there. The oil tanking Firmo Açu Petróleo JV, which is a very successful, the one that has grown the most last year. Here you see a picture of the 3 berth being completely utilized. This happened in 2020, and you can also see the difference between doing this operation outside the port and inside the port. You can clearly see the water protection that you have and be able to do this in the safest possible way in protected waters here. This is a picture that makes us really proud for 2020 because it was a massive expansion of oil export. As I said, every single company that is exporting oil in Brazil, including Petrobras, is using our terminal. So the multi-cargo terminal is, as I said, a heart of development. We have many different opportunities in there. One for sure is to make sure that as we grow the industry, we have an entry door that is the most effective and efficient way of bringing, like GNA did. They created a new power plant inside Açu in record time and with outstanding performance in terms of efficiency of logistics, because they could import everything they needed to import 2.5 kilometers from the site and not having to handle any bridges, any roads in Brazil, being able to straight import and get it installed and implemented in Açu. Major advantage. It is also a terminal that is growing in many other areas, and I think I have a couple of examples in here. This terminal has the potential, well, let me say that then. This terminal has the potential of picking up everything that is our ports around us are unable to do. And one of the things that we clearly believe is that today Brazil has a massive agro business that is developing, and once again, during the COVID, we saw it continue to grow, but it's very efficient inside. It's very, very inefficient on the infrastructure side. And we strongly believe that Açu has also a natural tendency to attend that. So let's continue. GNA, the first, as I said, we have 6.4 gigawatts of licenses to produce to become, you know, the largest thermoelectric power plant center in Latin America. We have one that is GNA 1 with 1.3 gigawatts that is finishing. You see the picture over here. It's actually old. There's a newer picture almost every week in which we should be able to announce the beginning of operations in the upcoming month of the GNA 1. So state-of-the-art technology. Another very interesting way in which Açu is developed, right, with partnerships. We strongly believe on Açu can do. And here we have a great example of partnering with Siemens and BP and developing this from the start and really being able to transform that region and generate electricity with gas. Obviously, at this point with LNG, in the future, we strongly believe that gas from the Brazilian growth of oil and gas that is happening over the next 10 years, we will arrive in Açu and we will once again unlock a new level of reindustrialization of Açu through the Port of Açu. Okay, a few examples of the UK presence in there we're presenting to you, so you can click it all the way. I'm not going to go on one by one, but you're already there. If you're from the UK, we have you there, Martin. We just need to get it bigger. When you say you would like to increase the presence in Brazil, we would like to be the best platform for that, especially in the industry side. In terms of growth, both in the commerce, but also in the industry, we strongly believe we are the most efficient and we have the best platform for developing in Açu today. How do we see it? So Açu has already built the infrastructure. Something close to 20 billion reais have been invested in Açu so far to make it what it is, a reality, not a PowerPoint, but a true reality. But how do we see things happening moving forward? We clearly see now that we have gas, we have LNG, we have electricity, we have water, we have good infrastructure, we have oil, and we have iron ore. We have the basics for the continued expansion of industries in Brazil. And that is one major push that we're making to ensure that we combine all this into this major opportunity that Brazil has in the upcoming years, especially with this opening of oil and gas, arrival of the pre-salt gas into the continent, and being able to truly have low cost, highly competitive energy in Açu so that we enable industrialization. That's how you see the waves coming ahead of us. But one thing for sure is that it's a new port. It's a baby port growing. It needs to grow already aligned to the industry of the future. It would make no sense for Açu to grow and then look at it and say, okay, how do we do digitalization? How do we bring low carbon business to Açu? We are here, we are growing as this picks up globally. So one of the clear ways in which we see the Açu evolving is looking at the industries of the future. How do we attract and we create all the conditions so that when Brazil becomes truly developed in terms of these industries, Açu is the preferred choice. And I think Tessa is going to go through some of our ideas that hope will spark some curiosity and some phone calls after this is happening. So Tessa is going to cover both of them. Tessa, I'll hand it over to you.
I gladly take it from here. Also from my end, a big thank you to the organizers for allowing Porto do Açu to present our opportunities to such a big audience. So I do agree with Firmo that I hope that I'm able to spark enough interest to generate some follow-up conversations with some of the individuals that are here in the webinar today. So Tiago, if you can move to the next slide, please. So as Firmo already mentioned, we see a lot of development already ongoing in the port, and obviously now the next step will be how can we expand our core capabilities, understanding what we already have and understanding where we are within Brazil, but also as a part of a global trading market. So if you could go to the next slide, Tiago. So it is important to remember that we truly believe that the availability of gas is a game changer, not only a game changer for Porto do Açu specifically, but also for industry as a whole within Brazil. Gas prices have been historically very high in Brazil, but this is about to change. So this allows you to really use in a much more time and cost-effective manner gas as a base product, being it for energy or being it within production processes. So the industrial projects that I brought will also have or will also show this link to the gas availability that we already have in the port. If you could go to the next one, Tiago, thank you. So the first project that I would bring to the table today is iron ore, or related to the iron ore. So we see within the global steel industry as a whole a sustained growth up until 2050. We understand where we are as Porto do Açu, very close to Minas Gerais, where you have large mining and large production sites of iron ore. A lot of that already going through Porto do Açu for exports. So our question is now, how can we add value to this iron ore? How can we generate industrialization from having this iron ore available, taking into account that we have the gas and looking at the changes in the global steel industry? So what we see within the steel industry is that there is a transition from a BF route, what is blast furnace, to an electric arc furnace route. What is the difference between both? It is the CO2 profile, and it is the necessity of having pallets or needing pallets and HPI. What we see at Porto do Açu, because of our proximity to the mining industry, because of the infrastructure that we have available for export, because of the availability of natural gas, that there is a huge opportunity to generate an integrated steel value chain at Porto do Açu, starting with pallets. So we have effectively already been working very hard on a business case, and we see a huge opportunity for a 5 million capacity pallet production in the port as a first step towards a more sustainable value chain on the one hand, but also towards an integrated steel industry in the port itself. So that's the first business opportunity I would like to bring today. The second one is based on one of the more stable markets in Brazil. The fertilizer demand in Brazil has been growing and growing and growing in a very stable manner for the last few years, and is forecasted to grow in the same manner for the next 20 to 30 years. In reality, the fertilizer market in Brazil is the fourth largest on the global scale, and the demand is growing at the highest pace globally as well. So there's a huge demand, sustained demand for fertilizers in the Brazilian market. Weirdly enough, 90% of these fertilizers are imported. Because of, again, the availability of the gas and because of our proximity to the agri-hubs and the fertilizer demand, we believe we have a unique opportunity. As you can see in the map here, 66% of the fertilizer demand is literally in our backyard. So rather than just being dependent on the importation, there is a potential to produce the fertilizers at Açu in a very cost competitive manner, taking into account the infrastructure we have available, the proximity we have to the main demand markets, and understanding that today we are effectively already importing fertilizers, so we are proving that these logistics effectively work to our hinterland. So that's the second opportunity, and you can tell I'm very excited about this fertilizer opportunity because it is really a very stable growing market that is of very high importance within Brazil as a whole. So if you could go to the next slide, Tiago, please. We can't talk about industrial development without talking about sustainability. As Firmo correctly mentioned, we want to be a port that is proactively ready for the future. So we want to be ready and proactively act rather than react when it becomes a problem. So obviously, as any port, we do have a sustainability policy, but effectively it is an intricate part of our business strategy. So here you can see an overview of the renewable energy that we are developing, but effectively we are doing much more. Tiago, you could indeed already pass, thank you. So within Porto do Açu, we have several puzzle pieces coming together, in reality generating a portfolio of opportunities to increase the sustainability value of your production process on the one hand, but also within the global value chain, so within global industries. And the puzzle pieces that we have at hand is our connectivity. We have cabotage as an example, the sustainable energy mix, the green based products that we're working on, the environmental compensation through Carwara, obviously, and then circular economy. Dependent on the industry you're in, dependent on the position that you have within global value chain, you might be more inclined to use one puzzle piece than the other, or use all of them. The uniqueness of Porto do Açu lies in the fact that you can access all of them at the same time. And I will give you a little bit more detail on some of the puzzle pieces. If you could go to the next one, Tiago, thank you. So this is an overview of the sustainable energy mix. Obviously, the oil and gas and the electricity generation is already present in the port and is very important to the port, but we want to do more than that. We want to see what the possibilities are for renewable energy. In reality, we have allocated 5 square kilometers within the port purely for renewable energy generation in the port. We're also looking into the offshore wind because we're very close to one of the high spots of offshore wind just in front of the Campos Basin. So I already see some connectivity to what Martin mentioned in his opening speech. And then we're also looking towards the future. And one of the future energy carriers is very much believed to be green hydrogen and green ammonia. So you see that we endeavor to have this energy mix to increase, again, the overall sustainability profile, but obviously also the cost competitiveness of your project. If you could go to the next one. This gives you a little bit more detail on the green ammonia and the green hydrogen specifically. It really shows that we are leveraging the area that we have available, leveraging the fact that we can generate renewals, but also have the standardized gas, which already has a cleaner profile, sustainability profile, into the different sections of global industry. On the one hand, the logistics, you can use it as an energy source for logistics, but you can also use it as a base product for your industry. For instance, when we're talking about the urea production, which requires ammonia, you could effectively increase the sustainability profile by using the supply chain as created by Porto do Açu and using green hydrogen as part of your mix. If you could go to the next one, Tiago. This is just to illustrate to all of you that because obviously I've been focusing a lot on the industrial development, but for us, sustainability is much wider than that. I can bring hundreds of projects as a manner of speaking here, but when you're looking to supply chain, ESI is a system that we recently implemented in the ports. ESI is the Environmental Shipping Index. So basically what it is a global agreed formula between 65 different ports nowadays that use it to rate the environmental performance of vessels. And as a result, they get preferential port use. So it is a system designed to support and foster very sustainable shipping and more sustainable shipping. And so we are implementing this system as we speak in reality. And then if you go to the next one, I mean, we can't talk about sustainability and industrial development without talking about the connection with Carwara. As mentioned by Firmo, Carwara was designed in the heart of the port, at the start of the port, and obviously it is a very intricate value in moving the port forward as well through compensation, but also because it is, as I say, it really brings all the values together of sustainability, industrial development, and growth, sustainable shared growth together. So I think that for me, this is it from my end. So I do hope I gave you enough information to trigger some very interesting questions. And Ieda, I gladly give the floor back to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Firmo. Thanks, Tessa. I have a lot of questions, so we have to get a lot of questions. First question is whether you guys are making the presentation available, the slides. A lot of requests about the slides.
Only if everybody places on LinkedIn and spread it across the globe. Yes, this is exactly the intention. Yes, we will make it available to everyone. Okay.
There were a lot of requests. So the first question, I'm not going to mention the name of the person that asked, but the first question comes from somebody that asked whether, take into account the large size, the importance of the Porto do Açu, if you could elaborate on whether you are planning to do a link with the railway, the Highway 101 to connect the port with the Highway 101.
No, absolutely. We all know that, as I mentioned, one of the difficult things about Brazil is the inland infrastructure. And we normally have a good excuse that we say Açu has as good of a connection to the roads as any other port in Brazil. But that's not good, right? The truth is that we know that every port has difficult connections, being because you're inside of a big town or inside of a major city, or because you're connected to a roads that are not optimal. We are connected to the BR 101, but it's not the ideal. So there is a project that we have been working for years already with the government, especially with the state government of Rio, which is a connection that goes straight from Açu to the BR 101, and also a loop that a BR 101 will go around campus instead of going through campus. This is a project that we work very hard. Everything is ready. We hoped that State of Rio de Janeiro was going to put out a tender for it last year, and we're going to continue to work towards that goal. We know we need to provide a better connection between Açu to, not for what we have today. What we have today, it's plenty, but for what we dream for the future, definitely we need to do that. So RJ244 is a project that we work with the authorities, and we hope to see it coming to fruition over the next few years if we see a tender coming up. The connection to the railroad is obviously a longer term thing for us. It needs to arrive. It makes sense for the country. If you look at the corridors that we have, the corridor that connects to Vitória, the corridor that connects to the south of Rio, we pretty much have been bypassing the state of Rio de Janeiro in terms of logistics by not having that connection. So we do have the Vitória Rio railroad that is in the plans of the federal government, but obviously this is a longer term. We see good news that it seems to have been completely decided that it's going to be extended from Anchieta to Bu. So it's getting closer to Açu, at least the north side of it. And then we need to continue to develop a solution so that we connect Açu through a railroad. That is something that we see a little bit further to 2027, 2028. It's more or less the window in which we see. Important. Most of what Brazil does today, still via roads, even in the ports that are connected through the railroad. So Açu will continue to develop, will continue to generate demand so that it makes imperative that we connect it to the railroad. So it's not that Açu is going to wait for the connection to the railroad to continue to develop. We will continue to develop, and then we will connect and then see the next level of growth when we connect to the railroad. So these are real projects. They are actually in the plans of the government. However, they go slow, pretty much the way infrastructure is developed in Brazil across the country.
Okay, there is another question here now associated to pellets. So somebody's asking which stage you are on the pellets project, whether it is in coordination with Anglo-American, and another question related to the same thing, whether you plan to load iron ore or ship iron ore from other miners, not only from the mine of Anglo-American.
Yeah, I saw that question from José there, and look, I'm going to give it the whole story. Açu is now at the prime. Let me say it again. There is no analog of Açu in Brazil. There is no other place which we can develop the way you can develop Açu, and it's at the prime time. Why is it prime time? Because everything is finally maturing to the point of further development. Anglo is now reaching the limit of stretching the infrastructure and being able to flow as much iron ore in Açu this year. So it's now time to think the next. What's next? And yes, we are looking at them to say, can you divert some of the iron ore that you are today exporting into a plant in Açu? Would you like to be part of it? So we are now at the final stage. Tessa should have, within a month, a very powerful study closed with every return on investment, with every calculation of different options of infrastructure, different options of logistics. Should we bring it by truck? Should we bring it by cabotage? Should we use the one from Anglo? This whole thing is going to be ready over the next month to be presented to the investors to say, we need to continue the evolution of iron ore in Açu so that we can dream of a major steel plant in Açu in the next decade. So yes, we are working on it, but we also have a logic in Açu that works very well. We dream big, we act slow. We dream big, we act small. This year, we're going to at least find a solution for these small miners. They need to be able to bring their mine, the iron ore to Açu, consolidate in big ships, and then export. That's something that João and the Temuche, that multi-cargo terminal, they're looking together with Ferroport to say, let's find a solution where Açu becomes also a major hub for these smaller miners or mines that have in around us to use Açu as a way of improving that productivity, improving their logistics. So this is being studied right now, and we should have news soon. I think that is what he was asking. So yes, we should see clear, visible public development in the iron ore area over the next few months.
Okay,
Tessa,
thank you.
If you want to compliment, go ahead. Otherwise, I will answer all the questions.
No, it's fine because you responded exactly in the same way that I did. I think it illustrates very well the business developer hunter mentality that we have in Porto de Açu. What we want to do is really show an opportunity in the shape of a business case to the market rather than just a concept. And this is effectively this business case that we are now deep diving in and should be concluded by the end of the month. And we already know that it is a very good opportunity with a wide variety of players.
Thank you. We are almost reaching our limit. It's just 1 minute, but I have 2 more questions. So if you can bear with me for the last two questions.
We can go a little over, yes.
Yes, we can get a little over. First question, it is the following. You have a successful track record of managing one of the largest private ports in Brazil and several terminals, very complex business. Will you be interested or be willing to bid to participate as operator of the upcoming privatization of other ports in Brazil?
That's a
With all your
tricky
expertise.
question. That is an interesting question. Look, privatization of ports is something that I've been asked a lot, especially because we are the only private big port in Brazil. So we want the infrastructure of Brazil to continue to evolve and grow. We know, as Brazilians, we know that we are saved by the crisis. If Brazil was growing over the last 15 years, the current infrastructure would not have held. So we know that we need to think about the future, and we want the country going back into growth again. So yes, the privatization effort is great. It's going to help us create more value and create more investments into the infrastructure, and Açu is part of it. If we're going to operate other port or not, it's not really our time now to look at it. We want to be part of it. We want to be partners of the solution for regional infrastructures that complement each other. Açu can complement Santos tremendously and can complement Vitória tremendously. If you look at this developed in a way in which generate value for all these infrastructures, Açu can be part of it. I can't tell you I'm going to be operating another port. I am a port, and as you have seen, I have 90 square kilometers to fill up with industry. So leave me to dream about that, and then I'll think about
It's
other
quite a
things
lot.
later.
Yeah, it is part of performance contract as well.
True.
I have a question here, interesting, two other questions now, because somebody put a question that I think was why also raised. Do you think there will be space in Porto do Açu for teaching institution for the courses in the segment established there for training, I believe, and associate with catering facilities and hotels? Because you have all these infrastructure investment, you might need to do training with people, and there will be opportunity to develop this training complex associated with catering hotels.
I'm going to try to answer that maybe in a little bit different way. Look, the development of Açu, and by the way, when I was invited to come to this project, one of the greatest attraction of coming to a project like this is that you're not just creating shareholder value, you're transforming a region. We're going to transform the Norte Fluminense when we fill it up with industries there. So it is obvious that we need to, as we do this transformation, invest in human capital, invest in the capacity. And if you look at what GNA has done, they've gone from having nothing in there to having 7,000 people working on that place. And being able to do it with the local community and offer training. GNA had some outstanding programs of creating local welders, a group of first group of women that was actually being developed to work on that. So we have a lot of programs, and this year in the HR community, we're looking at ways in which we can consolidate that and start thinking about I don't want to call it a training center, but it is programs together with whomever is in there, Senai, Senac, or whomever is in there, that we can continue that development. You're always going to see Açu and the companies in there working hard to generate the best possible solutions to continue to develop people in there, because we need them, because we really need as we grow. So wait for news, because I think one thing we need to do better in Açu is to give visibility of these efforts. There are different efforts in different companies in there, but I think for this year, we have an ambition to maybe create something a bit more integrated. The answer is yes, we need to continue to create these courses and these institutions, but we probably can do a better job of doing it together as one port instead of individualized efforts from companies. I hope I have answered that. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. I think you're on mute, Ieda. You're on mute. Sorry.
If the person that asked the question, Fred, is interested in maybe develop the business, they can contact you and develop something together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
Last question, because we are now a little bit reaching our limit. Somebody asked about whether there are government incentives, including fiscal tax, available for companies and particular industries willing to establish in Porto do Açu.
I think the straight answer is no. There is nothing specific for Açu. As you know, Rio de Janeiro state is under a current constraint of offering any type of special concessions. So what Açu can offer definitely is a place where everything else has been developed in terms of environmental license, in terms of infrastructures, in terms of easy access to logistics. This is kind of what it is. There's nothing specific in terms of incentive. Obviously, Rio de Janeiro has some specific incentives that are cross-segmented to all industries, and they apply to Açu. But there's nothing specific about the development in Açu.
Thank you. So we have a lot of people say, thank you very much. It was an excellent event, excellent quality, well done, great presentation. So I would like to give you, you and Tessa, the last minute to make any final considerations, and then I'll do the closing.
So no, I think the only thing we can say is how we appreciate this opportunity, and everybody that has been involved in putting this together. Thank you very much, Ieda, for moderating. I think it's an honor to have you here with us, and everybody that has contributed to give us this opportunity. For us, it's just thank you very much, and talk to us. Go to YouTube and put Açu Experience and fly around Açu. I think Vanessa and the team have done a beautiful job of allowing you to visit Açu without moving outside of the computer. So let's do that. Tessa?
Yes. So Tessa, any final consideration?
Well, yeah, I just would like to basically reiterate and echo the words of Firmo. I'm super happy to be here, and I do hope that we were able to put some seeds in your head on how to look to Brazil and what the opportunities Porto do Açu brings to the table. We just gave you a few examples. Obviously, Porto do Açu has much more things that we can consider and we can think about. So absolutely, if you have any follow-up questions, please find us through LinkedIn or via email, because that's also what we're here for.
Okay. So more thanks, and some people saying that they're going to contact you for future discussions. I hope we have met our objectives. I really encourage you to visit the Açu and several YouTube webinars. It's mind-boggling, particularly the one when you see the power plant and the LNG terminal, because I'm an LNG person. When I see this big, very nice vessel, it's mind-boggling. Thanks, Firmo. Thanks, Tessa. I thank very much the GIT, Vera, Lena Beraldo, that has provided all the infrastructure, the backbone of this presentation. Vera, do you want to say anything before we close?
You're on mute,
She's
Vera.
in mute.
Yeah, I'm back now. Just to say that it was extremely interesting hearing what you had to say about the Port of Açu, and I am so glad that we held this seminar. Thank you so much, Ieda, for doing a brilliant job. And Lena, thank you very much as well.
Okay, see you guys next time. The Brazilian Chamber is open for business. When you have any other presentation on renewable energy and green energy, we'll be very open to present as well. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye to everyone.